Opening merchant interface. Scanning trade routes. Scanning for cargo destinations within jump range. Cargo shipment available. 12 tons of Traveller rulebooks and 17 tons of guinea pig food. Destined for the Centaurus system. Contacting Matthew Sprange of Mongoose Publishing. Stand by.
Hello everybody. Today my guest is Matthew Sprange, Managing Director of Mongoose Publishing. Welcome Matthew, and thanks for joining us for the 5th annual Mayday Mayday event.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
We're not going to go into the great detail we have in past years about your history with gaming, but it would be nice to have kind of just an overview of what inspired you to get into gaming, and how did your passion for the hobby lead to where you are today?
Well, for tabletop gaming, I started very, very young. I must have been 9-10 years old when all the fighting fantasy and lone wolf game books started popping up in primary school. Devoured those. In between that and going up to secondary school, I grabbed the red box basic D&D set. I kind of didn't look back. Traveller was actually the third RPG that I got into, and from that point I was just lost in gaming.
What is it that attracted you to it so strongly?
Probably go back a bit further when I was 3.5 years old-ish when I first saw Star Wars in the cinema, and I can still remember sitting there and seeing the stormtroopers for the first time, and it's probably fair to say that had kind of like a permanent effect.
Is that how you primarily like back in those days? Were you playing Traveller as when you first got into Traveller, were you mimicking more Star Wars adventures? Is that what you wanted to do with Traveller, or was that?
No, I tended to use set scenarios or spin-offs of set scenarios. So it was in charted space. I mean, by that time, I've been playing D&D a lot. I've been playing the Games Workshop sold Judge Dredd RPG. So I'd already learned to switch between universes by that point.
Fast forward a bit. What motivated you to found Mongoose Publishing, and can you share the story behind its inception?
Well, the quick answer is that I didn't want to do a real job anymore.
What was your old job?
Well, I was working as a field engineer fixing computers, and a friend of mine that I'd known since primary school. In fact, he was the one I was swapping solo game books with, playing D&D with. He'd just left the army, and we talked about starting a company for a miniatures-based game. Actually, we sat down and talked about it. Decided the ideas weren't really there at that point. And then the D20 license came along. We had another chat, got some ideas together for a range of simple 32-page books. They ended up being the Slayers Guides, but our original idea was to do 3 32-page adventures, which is what absolutely every other publisher at the time was doing. It suddenly dawned one day, all these conversations were taking place in a pub. It suddenly dawned on me one day as I was sitting at the table there, if everybody is doing that, probably ought to do something else, which is where we got the idea for the Slayers Guides. When they came out, they hit the market like an absolute bullet, and we haven't looked back since.
Since our last interview, how have you seen the Traveller RPG community in the industry evolve, and what are your thoughts on these changes?
I mean, it's an easy thing to say. We publish books, so if there's any changes, they tend to happen slowly because we're using fundamentally technology that's more than 1,000 years old. I can tell you that these days we can see that more women are playing Traveller. You've got the rise of AI art and AI writing, which caused a little flutter of worry when they first came at the office, but I don't think there's any seismic shifts to worry about for the larger publishers at the moment there. It's pretty good if you're a hobbyist gamer, though, that likes creating your own scenarios, your own settings. While you might be able to write, you might not be able to draw too well, and I would certainly have fit that mold when I was a teenager. So I imagine AI art could be quite funky for that. But aside from that, things tend to move slowly. I mean, we've got, over the past, actually it's about a year now, we've got our new website up and running. And I can tell you it's an absolute joy to use. You know, where was this technology before?
Yeah, it's really nice. And you also converted your forums as well?
We did. I mean, that needed doing as well, but you have to do one thing at a time, otherwise you just end up tearing out your hair. So once we got the new website up and running, that was all in the preparation. I mean, we were first quoted 4 to 5 weeks to get it up and running. It ended up being nearer 3 months because we do have some odd things running in the background to do things the way we want to do them. So we're kind of using an off-the-shelf system, but it's loaded with various third-party apps, and you've all got to make sure they're all talking to each other. So yeah, we had to get that all up and running, but the forums were always we always planned an update. I mean, just being able to do one-click uploading for images of book covers when we announce a new title and not have to do a run around with a manual links is joyful to use.
Yeah, as a user of your forums, I have to say I really appreciate the update. It looked like, that's always a hassle to copy all of the stuff from the old database and put it, and then I don't know if you switched or just upgraded, but the new system's super nice.
Well, we get other people to do that side of things. We just shout at them when it doesn't work properly.
As the gaming industry continues to evolve, how do you envision the future of Traveller and Mongoose's publishing role within that?
That's kind of two sides. I mean, on the one hand, you got the positive and the negative. The negative, I can foresee what I call 3 possible extinction level events, which I kind of live in daily terror of. You've got the rise of AI. I mean, it's not there yet. It's not going to be there yet for quite some time. But when it can properly replace a games master, or when it can properly write an RPG book, that raises some questions. There's climate change, obviously, and also perhaps the collapse of capitalism. So those are all the negative things I worry about on the industry side. But beyond that, the future for Traveller. The RPG itself is going steady at the moment. We're not planning any new additions. We're not even thinking about them. We recently, about a year ago, released the core rulebook update books. We've done the same with Highguard, and Central Supply's on its way. And that's proving to be a very nice mechanism for us to update the rules without having to do a new edition and risk invalidating the legion of books that we've done already, and frankly we want to keep around because we like them. But beyond that, we'll be looking at both online services and getting Traveller out and about into other formats, whether that's fiction, video games, films and TV, etc.
Cool. So, how have player preferences and expectations influenced the direction that of Traveller's development and Mongoose's publishing approach to creating new content?
The quick answer to that presentation, I mean, if you have a look at the update books, the whole point of them was to take advantage of the new skill levels we had in graphic design and artwork. The rules updates on them were kind of incidental, at least to begin with. And we have seen people responding very positively towards that. When we first started Traveller in our first edition, we did deliberately ape the original classic Traveller book, so it was all black and white line art and what have you. But with this edition, we've properly updated it for the 21st century. Beyond that, people seem to be gravitating towards the stories being told in Traveller. So we're not concentrating solely on background material or rules books. We're also looking at the kind of stories that can be told within the Traveller universe. So, I mean, the obvious one is Pirates of Dranax, which has been very, very popular as a vehicle for people to tell stories at the tabletops. We've also got Secrets of the Ancients, but we're starting to double down on that. So Secrets of the Ancients is getting expanded into a full trilogy. And we've got another epic campaign called Singularity in the works right now.
Wow, that's a lot of content coming out.
It doesn't all come at once. You can breathe a sigh of relief.
Okay. My wallet. All right, cool. So I've noticed that it seems like more people are playing Traveller these days or finding
They
out
are.
about it, and yeah, and like you said, more women. I've got two women in my group, and I just joined a group that has a female player. What do you attribute that to?
I think it's two sides to that. I mean, firstly, the traditional view of Traveller is it's the province of manly men doing manly things with spreadsheets and tables for constructing ships and vehicles and weapons. And you can still do that to an extent, but that's not the point of Traveller. So expanding it out in with regards to the stories that can be told is an important hook. We also do much simpler and perhaps quite obvious things as well. Simple things like the interior art in the book and the book covers. We put women on them instead of automatically defaulting to men. We put women in situations and roles and I dare say clothing that makes them more realistic, more approachable, more relatable, and it does make a difference. I mean, for the past few years, all the art in Traveller has been either commissioned or directed by women. So at a stroke, you immediately avoid the trap of the male gaze, where any woman in the artwork is there for the benefit of male readers. It's not; they're just other characters now.
So with so many new players joining the Traveller RPG community, what advice would you give to those who are just starting their journeys?
It's the same with the great big D&D campaigns as well. Start small. With D&D, you might start with a single village and expand out from there. With Traveller, start with a single system and one of our short adventures. You'll find those adventures can be linked to get a full-blown campaign running. And once you're comfortable with it, then pick up the big Pirates of Dranax campaign that's going to last you 2 or 3 years. Don't dive into it straight away.
Because it could be overwhelming at first. I remember when I first started playing, I was overwhelmed with what could I do? What should I do? What kinds of adventures could I have? And I kind of felt like I had choice paralysis.
Well, you can still get that with experienced referees. I mean, if we start running a campaign here in the office that's in a sector we haven't played before, you still get that moment when you're just beginning as the referee, having a look at that huge sector map, thinking, I don't know any of these worlds. Am I expected to know all of them? Because the players can go anywhere. Of course, when you play, that's not true. Players are funnel. Players can make predictable choices where to go, and you don't need to memorize the whole sector. Just start with a couple of worlds to begin with, expand out to a subsector, and that's probably enough to give you months of gaming in and of itself.
That's been my approach. I make a subsector with maybe like 25 planets. It's manageable. That's plenty of planets for people to go and explore, or systems. And then if they want to, I just say, look, I don't want to have to do the 9 surrounding subsectors. So can we just stay on this map for a while? There's plenty to do here.
Exactly, yes.
So let's talk about your current projects. Can you give us a sneak peek into any current projects that Mongoose Publishing is working on for Traveller?
Yes. So we have on our website a release schedule page you can access from the front page that shows all the books that are pretty much well in hand that are coming out over the next 3 to 4 months. So I won't bore you with going through those. I can tell you in the works right now. It's projects of various sizes, but some of the bigger ones we're looking at right now. I mentioned before we've got our next epic campaign. It's going to be called Singularity. That's going to be popping up towards the end of this year in one form or another.
Can you give us a no spoilers overview of what that's about?
Basically, in a nutshell, it starts off in core sector. The players discover an extremely advanced AI. And long story short, their consciousness gets broken down, placed into new bodies, all across charted space as they're trying to complete tasks to either aid the AI or foil the AI. That's going to be completely down to them. And in a way, it's a study of the nature of artificial intelligence, what rights should be granted to artificial intelligence, and what, when you come down to it, what is real anyway.
All right, let's talk about the next thing.
This is one of the things we're trying to do with Traveller now. I mean, Traveller's rooted in the classic science fiction of the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Sure.
And science fiction, I was going to say of that era, pretty much all science fiction is in some way rooted in the real world, where it's used as a lens or a mirror to reflect our own situation back to us, whether that is rooted in history or in the modern day, whether it's to do with the human condition or political movements. That is the bread and butter of science fiction. So we've been trying to find story ideas that go beyond just the cool spaceship, laser guns, pew pew kind of angle. And if you go back on our releases over the past 3 or 4 years, you'll find little seeds of these ideas that hopefully get people thinking a bit while they're playing.
I'm with you on that. I believe that's a strong sci-fi tradition. You take something about current events and then you kind of exaggerate. Like, what if we take this to a crazy, exaggeration? What would our life be like that, either positive or negative? And kind of, like you say, doing a study of the human condition through that lens. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that.
Well, it's been what I was going to. Star Trek is the obvious one, but even things that are more out there, like Star Wars. I mean, the original Star Wars film is rooted deep in the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm. Right, and they're fighting the space fascists, basically. I mean,
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and you can go. I mean, pretty much on Star Trek, every single episode is a commentary on current social issues of the time that they're put out.
Indeed, yes.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And the one of the other things that's really cool is like there's so much like undeveloped areas in Traveller that you could go to and just, like you're saying, kind of put another layer on top. Now let's do these adventures that tie in to science fiction, because it is a science fiction role-playing game.
Indeed, exactly, yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right, what else you got coming? Give me more.
Yeah, we've got probably the smallest project on this list. It's actually got a little bit delayed because of a project I'm just about to mention. We're going to be returning to the old Sky Raiders campaign. For seeing this is going to end up being somewhere around 160 or 200 page hardback. Going to be going way out of our regular runs in charted space, where the players basically get to act as space archaeologists.
Oh, cool. Another staple of sci-fi. Mm-hmm.
Indeed, that would have come out this year, but it's got bumped by work on a project we actually announced last year called Pioneer. It uses the core Traveller rules, but it's basically a new RPG. Let's call it Traveller adjacent. It's set in the solar system 10 to 30 years in the future of our time right now, when you're just beginning to get manned exploration of the planetary bodies. And the whole idea of the game is the players are going to be first. They're going to be the first to start building a moon base. They're going to be the first to set foot on Mars. If you want to push the timeline ahead, the first to land on Europa and start looking for sea monsters under the ice. We've taken the combat chapter out. If you want to hit something, you do it through the skill system. But the main adversary in Pioneer is always the environment.
I like that. That's a clever idea.
I think that's probably going to be popping up sometime next year, because we're lining up a handful of supplementary books to it as well. I mean, the first mini campaign we release for it will be the first manned explorations of Mars. Hopefully before that, you will see the first book or first few books of the Fifth Frontier War. We're not really looking at advancing the Traveller timeline overall. So what we're doing is we're making the Fifth Frontier War its own kind of mini subline. The book covers will actually look different, and they'll have a different feel in the interior, so you can easily spot them apart. But we're going to walk you through the entire Fifth Frontier War. We're not going to be doing it solely through source books. Looks like we're going to be alternating the source books with mini campaign books. Campaign books are going to be maybe the size of something like Skandasvik that we did for the Sword Worlds. But we're going to be taking the players through several different viewpoints. Principally, someone on the Imperial side, a group on the Imperial side, a group on the Zodani side, and then a group will be the hapless travelers caught in the middle of it. So what you'll be able to do is basically switch between those three groups of travelers as you play through the entire Fifth Frontier War. And because we've included the traveler group in there, if your current group of travelers are in the Spinwood Marches right now, you'll be able to segue them directly into the heart of the Fifth Frontier War, where they're pretty much going to get a ringside seat.
Wow, cool. All right. Anything else?
There's always more. That's
but I'm talking about immediate release or whatever. Yeah, or not immediate, like the when I want to say short term plans here. I kind of have a question about that someone asked me the other day, and it was about 2300 versus Traveller, and where does like Twilight 2000 fit in, and wasn't it named Traveller 2300 at one point, and then the Traveller part was dropped? And can you tell me how those products are related, or if at all?
I can give you a brief sketch. I mean, this happened in the early to mid 80s, and I was still at school at the time. But basically, 2300 was always kind of its separate thing. It borrowed the Traveller name for its first release, but from the second edition onward, it got split away from that, and it never really shared Traveller rule systems. In terms of background lore, there is no connection between 2300 and Traveller's Charted Space. We did briefly talk about that idea with Mr. Miller, but he wasn't keen on following down that line. As I understand it, Twilight is a part of 2300, but obviously that's not something that we do.
Right. Okay. My explanation was basically it was just a difference of tech level, and once you get to 2300, it's mostly in-system stuff, and then Traveller would be like the full, interstellar adventure thing. I hope it was mostly accurate.
I mean, it's the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, and something like The Expanse or The Martian. Actually, The Martians are more like Pioneer, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. I said. I told him that 2300 was more like the Expanse, and if hopefully that was relatable. Are there any unique or innovative mechanics or gameplay elements that Mongoose is currently exploring for future Traveller RPG releases? Like, for instance, you have the mercenary ticket system and the mercenary expansion. Do you have any kind of other ideas like that for future expansions or source books?
Yeah, I mean, there's always ideas. I mean, the golden rule for us is always to keep things simple. Because it's very easy to fall into the trap of trying to make Traveller a simulationist type game. And whilst that had a draw, again, in the late 70s, early 80s, we are no longer at that point with tabletop RPGs, simply because computers do it so much better.
Mm-hmm.
What tabletop RPGs do better is, I keep coming back to it, is story.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, even with video games like Mass Effect, which the people at Mongoose rate very, very highly, it still doesn't hit what you can do with a tabletop RPG.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, in terms of rules, I have been thinking ever since we released the second edition that a change in the armor piercing rules would go down very well. I mean, at the moment, weapons have an AP rating, and that's deducted off your armor, and then you match damage against what's left. What I think might be a more fun thing to do is have AP as all or nothing. So if you've got an AP5 gun, it will ignore any armor that's got protection 5 or less. But if if it hits armor with protection 6, then that armor has its full effect. Firstly, it's a lot easier and a lot quicker to do when you're in the heat of combat at the table. But also you can do some fun things with it in terms of making certain weapons impractical or even useless against certain types of armor. I mean, something like Battle Dress will suddenly really swing into its own with that kind of system. And on the other hand, you can design specific armor-piercing weapons to defeat very specific armors, but not others. That, however, would take a very big rewrite of a lot. If you think about all the weapons in all the books throughout what we've done so far, it's not a small thing.
Yeah.
And if we were ever to do a new edition, we'd probably include that mechanic. But as we're not looking at doing a new edition, it's just kind of hanging there at the moment. But on the wider scale, we are very keen on exploring different campaign types for Traveller, and you've seen that with deep space exploration with the Great Rift set. You've got the naval campaigns in Element Cruisers. You mentioned Mercenary. I'm just about to start editing a new campaign type we're going to be adding, which is Bounty Hunter. Whether you want a complete dedicated bounty hunter campaign, or you just want to add bounty hunting elements into your traditional Trader Traveller style of game. But looking beyond that, I've been thinking for a while, the Naval Campaign Handbook is kind of buried in the Element Cruiser books, and I think we can do more with it anyway. So it's probably going to be maybe 3 or 4 years away. I do like the idea of a Traveller related, again Traveller adjacent RPG, standalone but with links in Traveller, that's purely dedicated to bridge crew campaigns. That idea does appeal to me, and I think there's all sorts of improvements we could make on the current Naval Campaigns Handbook.
There's a couple of camps of thought out there, and one is like the simulationists that play Traveller, and I've heard criticism that oh, this isn't realistic or that isn't realistic as far as like building ships or whatever. But I'm like, you know what? It's not stories about your ship engines. It's stories about people in the sci-fi world, and how things really work doesn't matter that much. On Star Trek, nobody's really concerned about how the transporters work. They just work. Nobody's concerned about how the computers work. They just work. And because they're just MacGuffins. They're not They're not part of the story. The story is between the people, and you have this kind of within the setting, within a sci-fi context, I guess. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this.
Well, it's also worth remembering that once you move out of the Charted Space universe, the Traveller core books are designed to be used for any universe. So we need to put all or most, at least most of the options in there. So you can have engines that do work realistically. You've just got to cut out all the bits of rules and other technologies that make them unrealistic for the universe you're currently trying to work on. And the benefit of Traveller is that all its rules are very, very modular, so you can like plug and play with the bits that you need for your specific universe.
Good point. Good point. So, are there any areas or aspects of the Traveller universe that you feel have yet to be fully explored or developed, and what would you like to see expanded upon in future projects?
Well, the quick answer is there's still quite a few sectors in Charted Space that we haven't done books or maps for yet. And I've said in the past, I have this dream that one day we'll be able to get all those giant poster-sized sector maps, put them together. And I mean, you need a sports hall to do it, but you'll be able to see all of Charted Space and know you can visit each one of those worlds, and we've got details for all of them. That's probably not going to happen because, as it turns out, space is big. So
it would be cool to like lay all the subsector maps or sector maps out like that on a basketball court or something. That's a crazy good idea. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
But no, we've so we do have more sector books coming out. I mean, you should see where would be end of next month. The Trailing Frontier comes out. It's a book that combines gateway and lay sectors. And we've just received a manuscript covering for another sector book covering Dark Nebula and Reaver's Deep. We don't have any specific plans for the big double sector books beyond that, but never say never. There's always going to be an interesting bit of space to explore. We started doing what we call the Empire books. We released the Third Imperium. And in each one of those, the Zodani Consulate will be next, but we'll cover the Aslan, the Hivers, and everyone else eventually. In each of those books, you will get one of the, if not the central sector of each empire, which has not really been covered, I don't think, for any of the big empires in Traveller up to now. But I mean, part of the point of that is, in the past, in the Charted Space universe, the Zodani and Soleimani have kind of been seen as the baddies, the bad guys, the people to work against, particularly when you start thinking about the Rim War and the Frontier Wars. One of the things we've been working towards is to humanize both those empires a hell of a lot more. I mean, you'll find going through our Soleimani books now, the Soleimani are a lot less, shall we say, fascisty now. They're more relatable. You can justify playing even a character from Soulsec. They don't have to be the bad guys. We'll be doing the same for the Zodani Consulate in the Fifth Frontier, where we very much intending from the start to show that war from the Zodani point of view as much as the Imperium's. Again, getting people used to the idea that it's not just about being able to set a campaign within those areas of space and playing a fish out of water story as people from the Imperium start exploring. No, actually playing characters from those areas of space too. That, I think, will be a long-term thing we're working on.
So let's talk a little bit about like current events. So let's start out with like virtual tabletop VTT. With the increasing popularity of virtual tabletops and online gaming platforms, how has Mongoose Publishing been adapting its products and content to cater to this growing trend in the RPG community?
The quick answer to that is we have handed off pretty much all of it to a third party headed up by a gentleman called Colin. He's been primarily working on modules for Fantasy Grounds, where you'll find a big Traveller presence. But we're starting to look properly at other systems, other platforms now. It looks like Roll20 is going to be the next one, and I think you'll start being able to play Traveller there with official modules this year.
Cool. I started out on Roll20. I was just looking at my Roll20 stats today. It's thousands and thousands of hours of
Excellent.
of playing. I've GM'd like 35 games and 6,000 hours of playtime or something. It's
You
mostly
think that somehow sounds so much more wholesome than when you see you've played 6,000 hours of a video game?
Yes, doesn't it? Well, in my case, it's not so time wasty because I actually, in addition to using it for playing games on, I also use it for designing games. Like it has a real cool, like you can make decks of cards, so you can make your own card games, and you can set up your own tables and produce stuff. So it's kind of, you know, there's more to it than just VTT. You can use it if you just as a common area for rolling dice if you prefer theater of the mind. You know,
Indeed,
there's a place for it. You know. So that's good to hear. Let's talk. We touched on AI. Let's talk a little bit more. I've been checking it out, and from my perspective, AI is a little more than a sophisticated Mad Libs generator. I've heard rumors that Wizards of the Coast are working on an AI GM, but I'm not sure. Do you think AI can replace a GM?
It depends. On a long enough timeline, yes, is the easy answer. I mean, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You could make an argument. It's at the moment it's more like advanced text prediction, working out what words should come next, rather than anything. Excuse me. Anything like genuine creativity, which is going to be the missing component for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't to say you can't do things with it. I mean, certainly, if you need a quick adventure idea, it can certainly get the creative juices flowing with a quick conversation. But at the same time, there's a big difference between getting some cool ideas and having a full 32-page adventure pumped out for you for that evening's play. It does remind me of video games like the old Neverwinter Nights that had player created content that you could download beyond the main campaign that it had. And I think it will start off feeling like that to begin with. I mean, it's a great idea. Getting the games master sitting at the table, it has always been the barrier for role-playing games. If you don't need that and have a bunch of people just getting ready, they're just willing to sit down and play, there is room for that. It's going, I think, to begin with, feel more like something like, as I say, Neverwinter Nights or World of Warcraft.
Maybe like text adventure kind of feels,
with a lot better graphics. I'll give it that that at least. I'm not worried about it yet, but on a long enough timeline, we're going to have to adjust, and I don't know how to do that yet. I've got some ideas, but we need to hold off. We need to hold off a while longer, but before getting worried about things. We have looked into this, but even
might be good for solo players. I mean, solo play is a big topic, you know, in this.
It could, but what's going to be the difference between doing that and playing a video game?
Right,
That's
or doing like a pick your path to adventure book or something.
Yes, yeah. Any game on your Xbox at the moment. I mean, looking at in terms not of tabletop games but of existing video games, you're going to need to get somewhere where an AI games master can recreate something on the level of the storyline of Mass Effect, when it can do that without defaulting to the same ideas every time, that's I'll be worried then. How's that?
Okay. So, well, what about AI in the context of Traveller? How do you see AI characters and NPCs fitting into the Traveller official setting, as you mentioned, like with Singularity?
Well, the Singularity is kind of going to be an exploration of that. I mean, when we're talking about AI in Traveller, we're talking about actual consciousness, not the little systems we've got in the real world at the moment. I mean, it's the difference between a supercomputer and a TI-82. That's what we're talking there. So in terms of AI in Traveller, I think you're looking at the God mode, and with the current tech levels of the empires, that's not really a thing. I can see in the near future that Traveller tech levels will need another readjustment, just as we did with computers no longer needing an entire room in the ship. We might need to start thinking about, for example, the intellect programs work on ships, but for now we're good, I think. The more interesting side at the moment is what AI can do on the back end. I mean, AI art has all sorts of ethical issues right now, but even avoiding those, it's not there yet. I mean, it's nice for creating scenes, but when you're looking for something very specific, I want a Zodani from Regiment X, it's not going to work.
Right. No, it
But we
doesn't know
are
what that is,
seeing,
right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's the problem. We are seeing freelance artists beginning to use AI, not in the work that they submit, but if you ask them to do a quick composition sketch, they might well use AI tools to quickly put together 5 or 6 ideas in the time it would take them to do one before. None of that gets used in the final piece, but it's an aid to the artist. We've looked at it on the writing side. I mean, how awesome would it be to have a true AI editor? So when you're going over a manuscript, you no longer have to worry. You can be confident that you don't have to worry about typos or grammar at all. You can focus solely on the content. That for an editor is the holy grail. But again, we've looked into it. We are nowhere near it at the moment.
Right. Yeah, I saw a picture of a meme that was like, people are freaking out that AI is taking over the world, and then it's like the AI artist. The prompt is, salmon swimming in the river, and it's like salmon fillets jumping up up the waterfalls.
Yeah, it all comes
And I
down
was
to
like, well, it's like an
context,
evil genie. You have to like word your wish like very specifically.
That is true, and it's going to be a while before that kind of AI thinking filters down into a market as small as RPGs. That I don't think is the worry. It's when AI can work out how to break down into smaller markets or smaller fields in that way, and of course it will be able to do that lightning fast. And at that point, you might as well hail your robotic overlords. It'll be over for all of us.
Can you let's talk about some behind the scenes insights and challenges. What kinds of challenges have you faced in maintaining the rich lore and history of Traveller while also introducing new and engaging content for players?
For the second, it's never been a problem in terms of coming up with good ideas. The trick is finding the good ideas that fit. And the two main tools we have for that is firstly writers who know the background lore very, very well, and importantly how to implement it in a form that can be told as a story at the tabletop. But we do get wackier ideas every now and again, and for those we have what we call the inner circle. Basically the people that Mr. Miller trusts beyond all others with the Traveller universe. And so we fire things through them. You'll see them mentioned in the credits of every Traveller book these days. And if we need to go a step beyond even that, we talk to Mr. Miller all the time.
Fantastic. It's nice to have the endorsement of the originator. His counsel, his wise counsel.
It's not just his endorsement; it's his approval.
Yeah, it's right.
He owns everything.
Right. So let's talk a bit about the OpenGL fiasco that was going on there for a while. With indie content creators developing under the Cepheus engine, which is based on Mongoose Traveller First Edition in the system reference document, but it also falls under the Wizards of the Coast Open Gaming license. How is Mongoose Publishing supporting and fostering its indie publisher community amidst this recent controversy around Wizards of the Coast proposed changes to the gaming license?
Well, when it all blew up with the OGL, the first thing we did was kind of corralled all the main Cepheus publishers, guaranteed that all the work they've done before wouldn't go away, and started working out what to do next. But we had this idea that we could use this catastrophe as an opportunity, and hopefully try to work out a way forward that everyone would be a lot happier with, because we kind of let the original SRD kind of lie fallow, and people doing all sorts of things with it. But there wasn't much sense of unity. And of course, the big bugbear in the room was that there's a second edition of Traveller out that they couldn't use. So we had about 2 weeks of fairly intense talks and negotiations with them, trying to hammer stuff out. The upshot is that we're going to be doing SRD2 based on the current core rulebook, the update 2022. We are looking at using the new Orc license from Paizo. We haven't seen it yet, but
I saw your company listed on a blog article about that as joining in.
Yeah, so we'll check it out, and if it's everything it's cranked up to be, that's probably the one we'll use. If it isn't, we'll find some other mechanism or come up with our own, or we'll do something. We're going to have a new Traveller open content license and logo. So when people publish material based on SRD2, they'll be able to do it with a form of the Traveller logo.
That's cool. So if I write an adventure using the SRD, I kind of get I can, if I'm registered with you or however you're going to do this, I can use like a Traveller logo that identifies it as an indie production, and yet compatible with your system.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to, at the moment, we haven't finalized yet, but at the moment, it's going to be our Traveller logo with the words open content layered over it. So it's going to be instantly recognizable. And with any luck, we'll be able to get at least a portion of the existing SRD publishers to bring out Traveller open content, or TOC, material roughly the same time. So maybe we'll have a Traveller open content day, and we can use Mongoose's own megaphones to try and boost visibility to them. We've already done a draft of SRD2 that is with the Cepheus publishers at the moment. They're looking through it, going through it with a fine tooth comb, making sure we haven't bitten too deeply with the text, because obviously we remove all the a lot of the fluff text and anything that refers to the charted space universe. So I'm all going well. A little later this year, you'll see that happening.
Fantastic. Because from what I understand, you've been on the other side of this, right? Well, I don't know if you were ever felt like your license was going to be pulled, but you developed under the Roll20 license. Sorry, not Roll20, D20.
We did, and to be honest, we never felt the license was under threat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the D20 license was it was always a possibility. We understood that, but the OGL at the time, we understood it to be it couldn't be revoked. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe
So you didn't even
if
really
we had,
worry. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if we had made different choices in the past, maybe those few weeks would have been a lot more fraught for us. But as it was, we were very much on the sideline.
So, all right, this sounds like a good plan going forward. I'm excited to see what Mongoose does with their open gaming license. Let's talk about playtesting and community engagement. Can you share any insights into how Mongoose Publishing approaches the process of playtesting and refining new Traveller content before it's released?
Indeed, when we have a veritable legion of checkers and players on terms of the rules side, and as I say, for the lore side, we have the inner circle as well. The writers themselves tend to have their own groups and their own checkers. By the time a book comes out, it's seen by dozens of pairs of eyes. But of course, there's a big difference between dozens of people going through it and the hundreds or thousands that will see it in the first week of launch. So we always, when we release a new book, we always keep an eye on the forums for any chatter that anybody's spotted with varying degrees of nervousness.
Do you have like a customer council? Like, what role do fan feedback and community engagement play in shaping the direction and development of Mongoose products?
It's primarily on our forums at the moment, but we keep an eye across all our social media as well. So Discord over the past year has really taken off for us. I mean, that has the advantage that people feel very comfortable to ask us anything at any time on that platform. Facebook's an obvious one. But when people really want to get into the real meat of a book, it tends to be our forums.
Gotcha. All right, cool. It's good that you pay attention to that as your customer. I appreciate that.
But we try to read everything.
Mm-hmm. No, I have seen you respond on, or your staff respond, or friendly, knowledgeable members of the community, try to help out. And of course, they defer to the actual Mongoose staff, but very, very helpful and friendly community. Very cool.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are there any upcoming events or conventions where fans can meet you in the Mongoose team, or where they can experience your products firsthand?
We're going to have a presence at Gen Con. It's Studio 2 Publishing that handles our events in North America. Although actually this year, three of us will be at Gen Con. We won't have a stand, but we will be floating around. I'm using it as an opportunity to introduce the staff to some of the behind the scenes characters and companies within the industry. I don't know whether you've heard where companies Mongoose is moving towards being both employee run and employee owned. So
I've heard that.
Yeah, I'm gradually stepping up the roles people have. So on the one hand, it's a bit of a holiday in Indianapolis for them, but also they're going to be involved in a lot of meetings as well. Excuse me. Beyond that, I think the only convention we're booked in for the moment this year is Dragon Meet in London towards the end.
Have you have you and your staff visited the States before?
Yeah, I mean, I've been loads of times. It's been a few years since we've done the conventions ourselves there, but we used to go every year to Origins, Gen Con, and the Gamma Trade Show. I have been giving, neither of the two people going with me this year have been to America before, so I've been giving them all sorts of horror stories about how you must never ever cross a road away from a pedestrian crossing, or you're going to get shot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, stay in the crosswalks, please. Observe the local customs.
I have also told them that they're not going to be able to control their calorie intakes while they're over there for that week.
I've heard that our portions are ginormous compared to what you find in other countries. Really yeah. Cool. Well, I hope you enjoy your trip and when you come and visit. So let's talk a little bit about upcoming products. What do you have like in the long term?
Well, actually, the long term, I think we kind of covered with
covered that. Okay.
The likes of Pioneer and Fifth Frontier War. I can tell you coming up, actually, I'm just looking at the list now. I've already talked about two of them. You're going to see the next new Traveller book you're going to see is Trailing Frontier, covering Gateway and Lay Sector. I've already mentioned the Bounty Hunter book. Mm-hmm. In between the two of them, though, you're going to see a book called The Imperial Navy, which will be your one-stop shop for all lore behind the Imperial Navy. There's very few rules in that book. It's quite system agnostic, but it does really get into the details of how the Imperial Navy works, how it functions, how it approaches things, right down to how security works on board a ship, how you get your promotions, what you need to do to keep those promotions. And our graphics department is, as I speak, cracking their knuckles to start fleshing out things like uniforms and rank organizations and
cool
medals, rank badges, and so forth. It's going to be a very pretty book, but also a very informative one.
I'd like to take a minute to give kudos to your art department because, man, you guys have some great art coming out. The cover of, I'm not sure which book it just came out on, but it's a subsidized trader like burning through the atmosphere. Man, it's awesome.
Oh yes, that's we combined the March's Adventures into one hardback.
Yeah, that's it. Beautiful artwork on that cover. Well done.
Thank you.
For fans who want to stay up to date on Mongoose Publishing's projects and releases, what are the best ways to follow and connect with you?
Website, you'll always see new releases on the very front page. If you scroll down from that, you'll be able to sign up to our mailing list via email. We will not bombard you with random emails, but you will hear when something new is released on the day it is released. Other than that, we're on, I think I'm safe on saying, all the major social media channels as well.
All right, and we'll provide links to all that stuff in the show notes so people can link directly from this podcast.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much we've come to the end of our interview. Matthew, thank you so much for your support on this event, and thank you for being a great leader over there at Mongoose. I'm really happy with your products, and again, thank you so much for all you've done.
Thanks for listening me waffle on for so long.
I can listen to people talk about Traveller all day, and I will on the first. All right, then. Well, dear friends, thank you for joining us, and until next time, happy traveling.